out a bit. There we go. Perfect.
We're all talking about October 7th and this war, but it's not a war. It's an illegal occupation. This is you are
So
framing.
we're getting back to the point I asked.
Yeah.
How do we solve this?
But
Because
this is how we
Hamas
solve
is
it.
basically
This
the
is how we
war
solve it, sir. We have to frame it correctly.
How do we do that?
By talking about what it is. It's an illegal occupation. It's an apartheid. Would you agree it's an apartheid state, sir?
Let's start off with the real facts. Settlements in the West Bank are an illegal occupation. 100%. 100%. So these people saying otherwise, I don't know about Talk TV. They could just be blowhards. They probably are. But they don't know what they're talking about here.
No,
You wouldn't agree.
because Israeli Arabs are high court judges and put Israeli politicians in prison.
Okay, did you know that the Israeli Arabs that you're mentioning also have to go by a military judiciary system as opposed to what civilians have to use in
I
Israel?
don't know that.
You didn't know that
They
exactly.
serve in the army. Muslims serve in the Israeli
Did you know
army.
recently a woman just got
Calm
arrested?
down.
Let me speak. A woman got arrested recently, an Israeli Arab, yeah? She got arrested for speaking in a WhatsApp group, positively speaking about the Palestinians, right? And she got arrested. Do you call that a democracy?
What, is that true? Okay, that's Al Jazeera. Okay, that's not that bad. I don't see any source besides Al Jazeera that's talking about it. This is Al Jazeera.
انت موقفه باتهام بنشر كلمات مديح تعاطف وتشجيع العمل الارهابي. دعم ثاني شوي دعم تعريض حيازه اعلانات تعرض على العنف والارهاب، الكشف عن الانتماء الى منظمه ارهابيه.
Damn, if that's true, that's crazy. Al Jazeera makes me second guess it. Um, but if that's true, then that's crazy. I don't get how you can even arrest somebody just for saying something on WhatsApp. It doesn't look like they arrested her though. It looked like they just arrested her husband. They put her husband in handcuffs. So maybe that isn't true. Anti-Palestine TikTok. Oh my god.
But
Well, she was anti-Israel, this woman.
Let Henry speak.
Let Henry speak. Country that looked after.
I have negotiated ceasefires, okay, and between some very antagonistic parties, and every time one or other or both parties want to go back and say, well, this is the problem and they're to blame and this is the issue and we've got to solve that before we can. No, because if you go back to address that, you straight away go straight back into the argument that caused the thing in the first place. Yeah. What you actually have to do is say both sides want to sort this out sincerely. And in this case, I don't think they do at this stage. And then you can go. And talk about these things in a sane, sensible, and calm, rational manner. Okay. If you don't, if you go straight into these things, then actually you build the situation worse, and you've blown a chance for a potential talk. So that's the reality of it. And what you're doing at the moment, if I may say, is you're going straight into that argument rather than saying to the principal, we're going to have to stop fighting if there's going to be peace. It's not we're going to have to talk and then we'll stop fighting if you do.
He's 100% right. If you want a peace negotiation or to bring both sides to the table, the fighting has to stop. The bombing has to stop. The killing has to stop. The preparation for new attacks has to stop. And you need to come up with legible and fair points on both sides for people to get what they want, essentially.
That, then you will fail, and the war will continue. And Israel.
So what you're saying, Henry, is stop fighting, then we'll talk.
But that's never possible.
The hostages have to be released as well.
On both sides, I agree. That's never possible when one or other or both parties have the perceived need to continue fighting, which Israel does, and so does Hamas.
Let me ask you this question.
Why did you point at me when you said Hamas there?
Hamas is the army of the Palestinians in a way, isn't it?
It's the government of Gaza.
Can we all shush, please, a minute, and keep out? I mean, you would condemn Hamas. You already have.
I've done so on live TV. Yes.
So they are the people behind the Palestinians, holding the Palestinians in a really difficult situation.
Okay, may I please let me just go before someone cuts me off. I haven't had a chance to speak. I've been here 25 minutes. Right, guys.
I think it's 15.
No, it's quite true. So look, here's the thing, right? You've got to see it like this. If you were the Palestinians and... So let's not forget, by the way, the context here. Netanyahu propped up Hamas. Would you agree?
No.
You wouldn't agree that...
Would you?
You wouldn't agree that Netanyahu propped up Hamas?
I'm not sure what happened
They spent money on... They gave money to Hamas, guys. Let's not be... Come on, let's...
We supported Bin Laden.
All right. In the interest of fairness, you know what? Because from what I was told, Netanyahu gave money to Hamas. People are referencing the fact that the aid money that comes into Gaza goes through Israel. So they see that as Netanyahu giving money to Hamas. But that's just him giving them their aid money. Unless there's something I can find. Bro, I hate when this happens. Yeah, that's exactly what I said. This is the money that was given from coalition partners to to Gaza, but it went through Qatar and Israel. It was up to Hamas to decide what they were going to do with it.
Well, we supported Bin Laden.
Israel has kept Gaza going. That's true.
Okay, I can't even get a sentence out, guys.
Yeah, come on.
So look, the Palestinians are I know, but the Palestinians are in such a bad position, right? That they've been lumped in with Hamas, right? Like you just think
I don't want to cover this guy's face. Whoa. Why do I? Okay. Well, can't do that. So
Please, bro, please
you
give me a
stop it for a
break.
minute?
This guy, are you
No,
professional or
no,
not?
no, 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 no.
Let me
If
speak,
we,
bro.
hey,
Look,
if
the
we carry on
Palestinians
like
have
whoa. Oh my God. I wanted to grab this. But I can't. Okay, so I can't move this. Put it right here. There we go. Much better, I
have
this,
no
it'll end up
choice.
in a
Listen, let me
mess.
speak,
I know,
please.
Hamas are shooting them.
Listen,
No, just answer
this
the
isn't
question.
accredited. Is this accredited media, right? So I should have a chance to speak,
we
right?
are. You've had an enormous chance to speak.
If we
So
were to,
can we?
your
can
producer,
He hasn't even gotten to
I
speak.
haven't had a chance to
What are you talking about? He barely got to say anything. Why are you pretending like he's been speaking this whole time?
speak, bro. Your producer just said that.
Back off the
Yeah,
microphone.
but you interrupt him every 4
hey,
seconds.
hey.
Look, this is the truth. I'm going to speak the truth, and you guys won't let me.
We
Let me
we
speak.
can't.
The Palestinians don't have a choice, bro.
Listen.
They are being slaughtered.
Okay, listen.
Do you understand that, brother?
Listen.
They're
By
dying.
Hamas.
No, by Israel, bro.
Stop now.
Think about it.
Move back from the microphone because we can't hear what you're saying.
No, bro.
Why would you have to move back from the mic to hear him? You mean move closer so we can hear you? This guy is like such a donut.
This is
Could you
ridiculous.
stop using the language? It doesn't help
But
your
you
cause
condemn
at all.
Hamas.
You
But
be
you-
quiet. Sorry to
Bro,
all
it's
those
not-
listening.
Condemn Hamas now. Condemn them. Condemn them now. What does that have to do? So it's like these people, their first thing, the moment you say anything positive about or take the Palestinian side, condemn Hamas now. Condemn Hamas. Condemn Hamas. Now I get it. In most situations, in like a debate discussion, you need to start off there sometimes. In this case, this was unwarranted, uncalled for.
You know
Who
what
may
you're
be
doing is
offended
so
by that.
unfair, right? What
Right.
you've just done.
Ash, could you shut up a
You've
minute?
allowed me a chance
Now,
to speak, and then you've interrupted.
got to back
Admit
away.
it.
Come in as the producer and say what has to be done.
Can I
because
speak? Can I
you-
just
not-
speak?
But you've got to
Guys.
push your chair back.
All right,
You're
look, you
you're
can't
making
call,
it.
you can't
You be
call the
quiet now for a
Palestinians
bit.
Hamas, guys. It's so
I haven't done that.
No, will
but
you
what
stop
you're
it?
doing?
You just don't answer.
But, so do you think that I'm crazy and I'm just making
You've
stuff
all,
up?
no. Listen, can I get it because I've lost, and we'll come back to you, Henry.
That's fine.
Okay, I'm
Sorry,
losing.
Brian.
I'm actually losing the thread here. So you be quiet for a minute, and I'll come to you, all three of you, when it's your chance to talk. So, I want to hear from you. I want to hear what, in your view, can be done to stop. We've already condemned Hamas as
I'll
being.
tell you what we'll do. I'll tell you what we'll
Go
do.
on.
We'll stop making people that are trying to bring light to a humanitarian issue, and then when they come onto their show.
But how are they doing that? Don't have a go at me
Let me
because it
speak.
won't
You're
end
not letting
well.
me speak.
Can
bro.
you let him talk? Oh my God, let him talk. What is wrong with you, brother? Let the man talk.
But
Have I
don't
finished
go
the
and
sentence?
have a go at me.
Guys
I'm
at
asking
home,
you how to do it.
guys at home, have I been able to finish one sentence?
Yeah, get on.
No.
With it. You
I'm
ask a
trying.
question. Right.
How are we going to achieve peace?
Look at how you speak to me.
Well,
when
we're
you-
asking you, how can we
You
get
don't
peace?
let me answer.
Well, I'm asking you, can we get peace?
Okay, so this is what.
Why do you need to interrupt to ask him the same question he just asked? Bro, take a seat, shut up. Can people, like, shut up?
will disband dishonest media and people that what they try to do, as in they're looking at the producer like, oh, cut him off.
Hamas and
Can I
IDF
say,
don't care
wait, hold
about
on,
the media.
do you think Hamas is on my phone, bro? Like, what is this?
Can I
Do you think I can just speak to
I
them?
say Israel and Hamas don't care
The
about the
Palestinians
media.
are dying, right? I'm not Hamas. I'm English, bro.
I'm not saying you are.
Okay,
I'm saying the two sides are Hamas and Israel. They're not going to agree.
No. That's not the two sides. The two sides are the Palestinians and Israel, and Hamas are a fringe. Like
They're the government of
terrorists.
Gaza. They're the government of Gaza.
They don't have a choice. The Palestinians.
No, come on. That's not fair. They do have a choice. They voted in Hamas in 2006. Hamas was democratically voted in. There was Fatah and there was Hamas, and they voted Hamas. Come on. They had options.
Back from the
But
microphone,
nor did the Nazis did
or
in
I'm going to
Germany. I
finish
mean, that's
this.
how it works.
Ash, will
They're
you shut
still
up
the
for a minute?
You know, the
I
government.
need to know what then can be done to bring these two sides together. If Israel was to give the land they'd taken in the Six-Day War back, would that suffice for peace? Would Hamas?
What are you talking about? The land that Israel took in the Six-Day War? What are you talking about? What is this man talking? Do you know anything about this war? In the Six-Day War, Israel took the Golan Heights in the Sinai, but they gave the Sinai back. I thought they gave the Golan Heights back too, but they definitely gave the Sinai back. So what does that have? And then what does that have to do with Palestine? The land that they have lost is the settlements that are in place now in the West Bank. And if you're talking about before that, then it would be a large part of Israel that they would consider as Palestinian land. So what is this guy even on about? Talking about some Six-Day War.
Back off, and would that suffice for peace?
I mean, I'm not a politician, brother. I can't answer that question. All I can do is it's this humanitarian.
Yeah, I know, but you've got to answer.
How can you ask me, would Hamas be okay? Am I Hamas, bro? What does that mean?
But you just said the way to do it.
Let me ask him. Yo, Hamas,
but
would you mind if we got some
You
land?
just said the way to peace is through the media.
Hey, yo, Hamas, man. Yo, pull up, bruh.
Now doing this
Pull
to get
up,
more
bruh.
clicks.
They want to debate, bruh.
More views.
Yeah. So what is the answer to this?
Stupid.
Henry, I'm trying to get an answer.
Yeah.
Could you help me here?
Yeah, I think possibly. Look, there needs to be a third-party involvement here.
What's the UN for?
Well, that's exactly it.
Well, it
What
is.
I would say is, at some point, there's got to be an end to the fighting, and then that's got to be stabilised. And I would say that one of the things that surprised me is that we've not seen senior international statesmen going around and saying, look, what's going to end up happening here is the United Nations should take up a transitional administration, should run Gaza until there is a settlement as such. As the government, there is no need for Hamas. It's a transitional administration, and they will prepare the way for a democratic set of elections, etc. And potentially,
Here's the issue, right, with this. It is a good idea. Here's the issues I see arising. UN peacekeepers dying daily or weekly and just ending up on the news. That's one. Two, democratic elections. Hamas was elected democratically. Elected democratically. They beat out Fatah and were democratically elected as the ruling governing body of Gaza. Of Gaza. And then here's an even bigger one. Netanyahu has gone on record as saying that he wants to occupy Gaza. He doesn't want a two-state solution. He wants to push them all out of all the Palestinians, or a large part of them, out of Gaza into Egypt, Yemen, and other nations, and have a very, 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 very tiny Palestinian minority. And then we'll maybe have a one-state solution with Palestinians being a Israeli minority, essentially.
an Arab, and I'm thinking not full Arab, but Jordanian, Egyptian, UAE perhaps, security force, police, not military, policing force, which removes the need for the Palestinians in Gaza to have their own armed security element. So that way you've taken some of the sting out of the tail on both sides. There's not the threat to Israel, there's not the threat to the Palestinians in Gaza. And that gives space then for talks. But right now, very sadly, tragically, and nobody can lecture me about the horrors of war, which I have seen far too many times and very up close and personal. The tragedy is that people on both sides, and I wish both sides would recognise this, are dying. Innocent people are caught up in this, are dying and are suffering. I forget the numbers, you know, it's not about the numbers, it is about that fact. And that's a tragedy. But very sadly, that's going to have to play out until the time is right when you can actually throw in that sort of that brokerage type of deal, because it won't happen whilst everything is as heated and passionate.
You've made a great point, and I would now like to get your response to Henry, because you were nodding in agreement. You will shush. I will. I'd like to hear your response to that.
I respect you massively, sir. I actually feel like you're the voice of reason in this room. I'm going to apologise. I'm sorry if you feel like I've been rude to you. But
I don't at all.
Okay,
you get passionate, that's fine.
It's passionate, but if I'm not getting a fair shake, that's what you're going to get. He's given me a fair shake, so I'm not being rude to him. I'm being very respectful. And what I think you just done is actually offer a solution that could potentially work, sir. There is a chance that if we were to install I don't know, if we had look, they've already killed how many UN people that work at the UN have died in the last month. How many? It was over 50, right? Something crazy. So if we did have the UN in there and they could be protected and no bombing is happening on the Palestinian or Israeli side, maybe we could reach some kind of, maybe even a two-state solution, maybe a one-state solution, I don't know. But right now, kids are dying.
But where we are, what should Israel have done on October the 7th? How should they have reacted?
I think that's a great question, and the answer to that question would be, if Hamas had tunnels in Israel and they were in the Israeli hospitals, would they use the same approach? Answer fairly for once today. Would they use the same approach, yes or no?
Absolutely not. Answer fairly, absolutely not. It's an easy answer. Absolutely not. If it was in Israel and there were Hamas, which is a terrorist group, tunnels in Israel, they wouldn't start dropping bombs on their own land. They're gonna send it. I mean, also the comparison isn't fair, because any peace force, police, military they send to deal with those individuals, if those tunnels were on Israel's side, would be relatively safe going into the area. Whereas any military force, police force, they would have sent and are trying to send in Gaza are at the mercy of any opposition forces in the area, including but not limited to Hamas, Islamic Jihad, any other group that's operating in the area and want IDF forces to be killed. So it's not even a fair comparison.
I don't know what you.
If Hamas was in Israel, in Israeli hospitals, would they use the same approach with carpet bombing? Yes or no?
Well, there's Israeli hostages in the Hamas tunnels and they're bombing it. Yes, they would.
So you think that they would carpet bomb Israel and flatten it?
They're not carpet bombing. They're not carpet
They're
bombing.
not.
No.
So it's
only,
the number 4 most intelligent army in the world can't aim and are killing 10,000 civilians.
They're very precise.
They're arguing semantics. They are dropping bombs. It doesn't matter that they're not carpet bombing them. Technically, they're not flying F-35s or F-16s over the area, dropping multiple bombs at once. But they are dropping bombs, JDAMs, surface to surface missiles. They're firing missiles and destroying civilian infrastructure and killing civilians. So it's not even like just call a spade a spade. It may not be it may be SP4DE, but it's still a spade.
Let's go back to Henry. Enough. Let's go back to Henry and just get the answer to that. Are they carpet bombing or not?
I do have concerns about the way that the Israelis are targeting. That sounds like a bit of a technical sort of response, but I've done targeting for both in Afghanistan and during the Cold War, targeting planning. We didn't actually target anybody in the Soviet Union. We didn't hit them. And that's quite an intensive intelligence and operational task. And I can't quite see that the Israelis have got the capacity to do things with the finesse that we would do.
They kill less. We killed 3-1 innocent people to terrorists in Iran, and 5-1 in Afghanistan. Israel is a lot lower proportion than that.
But I look at the
So that's
fact.
factually right.
I'm just saying I've got some concerns. Okay, I'm sitting here in London. I'm not sitting down in an Israeli sort of command centre looking at it. So I don't know. I would, if I was Anthony Blinken, I would be wanting to look at that. That's all I'll say on that. But the thing is, if you are going to have a ceasefire or a sustainable peace and a follow-on solution, then the elements of this that that are fundamentally an obstacle include Hamas, partly because of the very public statements that Hamas have said about the Jewish state. And so Hamas have to step aside. There is no if, there is no but, and if they don't step aside, then the only way of doing that is for Israel to destroy any capability Hamas has of waging any form of war. And that is what Israel is now presently doing. Again, tragically, Hamas is embedded in the local civilian population. So what do you do? There are civilians going to be caught up in that.
Let me just come back to you. Will Palestinians accept their own state and live? If they didn't have the problems going on at the moment and everything else we're talking about, could they live peacefully with those people in Israel? Could this be done in the future?
The Palestinians are the most beautiful, resilient people that I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. I mean, listen, there is extremism, of course, but if you're to go through what happens to people in an occupation, terror is going to be born. We know it's part and parcel. Occupation and terror hold hands, right? So for you to just flat out blame all of Palestine, can they live like normal humans?
We're not. I'm asking a question.
I'm not saying you, sir. I'm not saying you, sir.
What I'm saying is, how do we get
live in peace?
No, I know, but how do we get to the peace? Because the Israelis.
What do we do with Ireland? What do we do with the Republic of Ireland, sir?
Jewish people at the moment are living in fear in this
country.
the
Arabs.
But wouldn't it be better if Egypt took control of Gaza and it just became part of Egypt?
No, it wouldn't.
Could I just say, one of the elements that I forgot to mention in this sort of UN scenario, the transitional administration, is that you're going to have the mother of all peace and reconciliation programs to deal with that, because there are people on both sides who have been traumatized by this, people on both sides who are not going to forget it, people on both sides who have hatred in their belly, and that has to be dealt with. I think if you can do that, then yes, there is the potential for the Palestinian people, if you remove the fiery, the extremist Islamic or political elements,
which they're educated from like 3 years
but
old.
if you can remove those influences and you can build this peace and reconciliation, then I think that's the only way forward. And actually, that's one of the things. I know you've been on the protests today, and I think there are various elements in those protests, but one of the elements that has, I think, is the trigger for the problems here and the tension that's arisen here is that there are elements there. And I'm sorry, I don't know you. I don't know whether you're part of it or where you fit in this. But there are definitely pro-Hamas elements. There are definitely people out there calling for the annihilation of Israel.
But
there are definitely people who are anti-Semitic, and they need to be out.
I mean, but then there's also people that are definitely against Palestinians having a state and want to wipe them out. One of which is the leader of Israel, their prime minister. Like, let's not forget, the biggest call for a death on both sides are the leaders of both sides. The leader of Israel and the leaders of the Palestinians.
Otherwise, there is no sympathy
and
in
the
Britain.
posters, a lot of people are calling, from the river to the sea, and people are discussing.
Well, what do you think about that?
Just a minute, and then they're calling, talking about, well, jihad doesn't mean this; it perhaps means that. Douglas Murray, who's over there in Israel, the other. In fact, I think he's over there at the moment. He thinks that everybody who protests are anti-Semitic.
Well, the vast
would you agree with that?
You know what I'm going to say.
Yeah, I know. I just want to hear you say it, really.
So the chant from the river. I actually interviewed a Jewish man today, and I asked him, about the chant. I said, do you think it means the eradication of all Israelis? And he said, no, of course not. There are Palestinians in between the Jordanian River and the sea, and they must be free.
But it does mean that. And also, even if you think it doesn't, you know the Jewish population and majority do think it means that. So why would you continue
Listen,
with it?
etymology is an amazing thing. Do you remember the word retard is offensive? Do you know what it means? To slow. We still use a fire retardant.
You're right, but
etymology,
You know it's offensive to the Jewish population,
of course
and
it
they're
is.
taking it as
if you want,
why are you carrying on
Okay, let
doing
me
it?
ask. Is the Jewish guy that was singing it? Wait, hold on.
But I need to know what you think it
If the
is.
Jewish guy at the march that I asked the question to on camera that I'm going to post tomorrow, is he anti-Semitic?
Yeah, there's a lot of them that are. Normally the ones that do that are.
Oh, come on. He's not anti-Semitic. He just has his opinion. What he thinks is what he thinks. If he doesn't think the chant from the river to the sea is about wiping out Israel or wiping out all Jews, then that's what he believes. Now there are people that when they say it, 100% mean to get rid of all Jews and to get rid of Israel. But then there are all people who, when they hear it and when they say it, they literally mean to just free Palestinians. It's the purpose behind it that matters, not just the words.
I think it means
Self-hating Jews.
Well, I just explained it. I think from the river to the...
Yeah, but there are the West Bank is an occupation. The settlements in the West Bank are an occupation. They're illegal, and it shouldn't be happening. There's an occupation on Palestinians happening right now, and it's not 100%. It's not all, Palestine is not just Gaza. It is also the West Bank, which is under an occupation.
Occupation that's legal, even though every
what is it
criminal
going to be
court said
free
it's
of?
illegal.
What does it mean?
Illegal occupation, bro. Apartheid for the last 75 years.
right, but then we get into the situation, and I'm going back to my previous point. If
Do
you
you just
start,
hate, do you just hate Arabs?
if you
is that
start,
what it is?
if you,
Do you think the Palestinians deserve to be in a
There's
genocide?
a lot of Arabs.
So why is it every time I speak, bro, you've got some little sarky little comment in the background. Bro, this is a genocide happening to people that are innocent. The Palestinians, I love the Palestinian people. How dare you try and put them down like that,
Do
bro?
you love the Jewish people too?
Of course I do. My best friends are Jewish and Israeli. My video that I dropped yesterday, what was it? It's a pro-Jew video. It's pro.
This guy is so he swears. He swears anybody that takes the Palestinian side has to hate Jews, has to be racist, has to be a bloodthirsty, jihadist, Islamic, just murderer. They have to be. But that's not the case. It's not a one-to-one comparison. It's not, okay, because I want this thing, it also means I want this.
No,
Why are you
denouncing all anti-Semitism.
you've got to
bro.
get, you've got to
Do your research on me if you're going to get at me for anti-Semitism, bro.
guys,
I'm not saying you're
My best friends are Jewish and
Why are
Israeli,
you
and they
having a
message me
go at
privately.
him? Why are you getting so upset about
Because
Ash?
every single time I speak, look, just play the show back when we're done and do a counter. Someone on YouTube, do a counter of how many times this guy's got.
But you're picking on
That's
him
the
more
answer
than
to your
anybody
question.
else.
Because it's him that's interrupting, bro.
look,
My family are dying and you won't let me speak without
We
being
are
sarcastic.
letting you
He
speak.
wants the Jew. Why do you think that song's not right? Bro, do you think I'm a racist, brother?
No, I'm
Honestly.
saying my point was, you know, the Jewish people do think it's that, and a lot of people do mean,
And what about the
that.
What about the Jewish people that don't
Well,
think
it's
it's
a very
that?
small minority of idiots.
there are
You
people,
think that the Jewish people that
Why
don't
do they have to be idiots? It's their point of view. Brother, get it together. They're idiots because they believe that it's not about murder and destruction. It's just about letting people be free. It's because you don't see the full picture. You don't even know the full picture because this other guy was talking about 1967 and giving land back. And he wasn't talking about the West Bank because they would be talking about the West Bank right now.
think it's racist are idiots.
You see,
This man on live TV just called them idiots.
Yeah, I do, yeah. I do.
Listen,
They're idiots,
They're
bro.
self-hating idiots, yeah.
look, the problem here
That's
is
exactly what I
that
think.
you're standing
Are
up
you not
for
embarrassed?
your
No,
people.
I'm
Are you not
that's
embarrassed to
exactly
have
what I
him sat
think.
on your show with you?
Because
You are an
I'm more
embarrassment to
embarrassed.
me,
You're
Joe.
embarrassed.
I'm the good one. Great reply. Really smart.
You're
man.
really-
No,
Look at you. You're going crazy.
You are
You're
really-
I thought you were a
This is like
comedian.
to be a
Guys,
honestly,
guys,
sorry for being loud next to you, bro.
Well,
Because you've been the voice of reason. But you're a donkey.
You need to take the heat out of what
You
you're
see,
saying.
he's a
because
fucking instigator,
You're not
bro.
getting
You're only like Henry.
You're not getting your point
I
across.
can't because he's
No,
interrupting.
but no,
You were
you
getting on well in the news.
You actually you can't because
Oh, you were.
you got too fiery, and that you know I
Henry
understand
is
the
a peace
passion.
negotiator.
I
He
might as
is
well
a
just shut up.
sort of
No, I
guy
might as well
that
let you talk,
actually
bro.
does.
Whatever I say.
You just get very emotional all
Right.
the
Bro, my
time.
family are dying, bro. I'm
Yeah, of course
sorry.
you've got
I'm
to remain over 20 years.
Guys,
I often talk over guests.
I understand, but look, if you
undermine genocide,
get your point, you've got.
There's no genocide.
You can either get your point.
Hamas tried to genocide.
genocide and
Hamas tried the genocide. Oh my God, bro. Oh my God. The Palestinians is not a genocide, but Hamas tried the genocide. That was their goal on October 7th, to kill all Jews. Trust me, if they were to continue, we would have seen Hamas wipe the fuck out that day. If they were like, take this day and let's go all the way to Israel, let's go to Tel Aviv and let's wipe them all out, Hamas would not be here not anymore. But if you consider what happened on the 7th as a genocide, 1,500 people killed, then you have to consider Palestinian the bombing campaign to be a genocide when 18,000 people have been killed. This guy is such a blowhard idiot. He's such a retard, bro.
ethnic cleansing
They
happening.
could do a genocide in a couple of days if they wanted to.
Should we go and have a cup of coffee?
They could carpet
beer.
You should be ashamed of yourself, bro.
Hamas tried to
If
do
this
a
was happening in
genocide,
the
but they
UK,
can't.
you'd be singing
Israel
a different
could, and they
tune. You know
won't.
that. Okay, so the million people that walked today in the march, are they all crazy? Are they all
But hold on,
self-loathing?
Israel could do a genocide in a day.
Quite frankly,
Hamas would, but they can't.
Stop.
Could they really get
This
away
is
with it?
ridiculous.
Can't
Guys,
bomb it like you say.
Wake up, bro.
Take a break. We're cutting
Guy's a
this off.
moron,
Finish
bro.
the
Who is he?
interview.
Get him off
Okay.
here.
We can't
Look,
break.
I can't break anyway.
Get him
But
off
you
it.
losing your temper like this.
I'm sorry,
is not
bro.
doing you, but
I
it's
know.
not doing your
But
cause any
why
good.
is someone
trying to
antagonized?
get
He's
crazy.
an agent. He's a provocateur.
What you must understand, if you forgive me, is that there are a lot of people out there who wonder why there are rallying cries, call them what you will, used by the pro-Palestinian protests
Yes, sir.
that are taken by the Jews and by many people in the UK who are not Jews and not part of this as being provocative. Now, if you want to, if the protesters want to take the heat out of this and get their meaning across, then they're going to have to use different phraseology. I heard somebody else say that what that phrase meant was justice to the Palestinians. Okay, well, if that's what it means, if that's what you want to say it. And then you take the flame out of it. And I think that what I was saying earlier is that there are different elements of this. There are people who are purely concerned about the humanitarian cost and the people getting caught up in. And I get that. Then there are people who are genuinely and perhaps deeply anti-Jewish and anti-Israeli and anti-Semitic. Then you've got Palestinian nationalists, and then you've got an element that I think is important to recognise, which is the socialists in the UK who are funding a lot of this, organising a lot of it, and turning up at the protests and providing a lot of the aggravation because they've got their own political agenda here. And I find it interesting that
Ben turned it over to the socialists.
Palestinians are being consulted on this, but when people are carrying placards from the Socialist Party of Great Britain that says freedom for Palestine for a socialist intifada, I wonder whether that's being discussed in the Gaza.
It's not really helping.
Socialist intifada. What?
What's needed is a clear, rational presentation of the concern. The thing is, there are different concerns. Yeah.
Can I just point out, by the way, look how civil our conversation is compared
Well,
to
you're
when
being
you did
civil
it.
with him.
Yeah, because he's not an idiot like you.
But you're shouting like that.
Oh, shit.
Right, let me go.
Quite nasty when you talk to me and quite civil with Henry.
Okay, listen, if you were respectful to me, I'd be respectful back.
I have been. I've been totally respectful.
Before you two start again,
I just disagree
let
with
Ash have
you.
his
That's
say.
not being
You've been
disrespectful,
rude
is
this
it?
whole time, bro. You know you have. Don't be
I've
disingenuous.
not been disrespectful.
You've
to you.
tried to undermine me at every possibility, bro. You know you have.
Well, that's the debate. If I disagree with you.
You've got 30 seconds
Well,
to
I just
explain
want to have a debate.
why Jewish people have been put down for so long,
I
have
can't
been
speak
threatened
about
so
it
long.
for all.
I'm going to interrupt you. You're going to
Well,
have
I mean,
your say.
basically, what's happened is Golda Meir said it. If Israel put down their weapons, there'd be a massacre, and if the Palestinians put down their weapons, there'd be peace.
Oh, you really think so? You think the last 75 years has been peaceful, sir?
That's because they haven't put down their weapons.
Oh, right. So they should just accept illegal.
Well, they did get total freedom,
accept
didn't they, when they
all right,
pulled out?
Just let me know so I can tell my family. I'm going to go. So accept apartheid, accept
no
ethnic
apartheid.
cleansing,
No
accept.
ethnic cleansing.
It's not apartheid. Again, we're having this discussion.
We gave the whole land back, and they just fired rockets into
Bro,
Israel.
Listen, there was a famous poet called Ghassan Kanafi, and he said, "Oh, they took our bread and they gave us crumbs and they asked us to be grateful. Oh, the audacity!"
They gave you the whole freedom of God. You could have made it into the Singapore
Don't misrepresent
of the Middle
don't,
East.
don't misrepresent.
I'm not. That's actually what happened.
Bro, you're misrepresenting what the Palestinians were given, and you know you are. There's a reason why every single charity organization, every human rights organization that
So
has...
what do the
there you go,
Jewish
cut me off
people-
right before I get
Well,
there.
listen,
I haven't
you
cut you
can't
off.
have...
I didn't cut you
I'm
off. I
sorry,
haven't cut you
I'm
off.
sorry.
Bro,
But you
think
just
about
can't...
it. But you
had a
You
go.
had a go at me, and I didn't even cut you off. He cut you off, and you had a go at
what you
me.
do to me. Ask the question.
Listen,
So anyway, you see how annoying that is, bro? You don't even get a chance to speak.
you get violent like that with me again.
Violent?
That is violent.
Call
You're
the police.
being
Someone
violent.
call the police because I was really violent to this guy.
Why
Give me a
don't
break.
you just go away?
I'll get out of here, no problem, bro. I'm sorry, if you don't want to be fair, it's fine.
Why are you
Very
saying it to me
hard.
again?
Because
He's
you're the
saying
one
it,
that
and you're
started the
going at
beef.
me.
You're the one that started the beef,
Yeah, you
not
see,
me.
you've got a problem, haven't
Sorry,
you?
I
You've
was
got a problem
violent
with me,
towards you,
haven't you?
right? Can we call security? This man has just
Get out.
experienced violence.
Just go. Just go
Bro,
and
if
go,
you want to
mate.
give a fair platform to people to come speak, then they can come speak. But if you want to villainize someone that's
We're
coming
gonna
with
go to a break
a
any
message of
moment now.
peace, you villainize me as if I'm a bad guy.
Nobody's
You think I'm a bad
villainizing
person?
you.
I know that.
This guy is, yo, he's better than me. He really said, you're being violent towards me. Help, he's got a bomb. He's got a bomb strapped to it. He gonna blow us up, bruh. He's calling him to fodder. Get him.
I know I'm
You're not a
not.
bad guy, but
You
you're
are
just
just
talking,
getting-
I'm
talking
upset,
crap.
bro,
really.
because you think I'm talking crap.
Why are you so threatening? Why are you so, you're being
I'm
threatening?
sat across the table.
He's being
bro. What have I
threatening.
done?
Shout
Oh, I'm Hamas. I'm gonna get you.
You know,
It's deranged.
Yeah, you got me. I'm
If
crazy.
we're going to a break, there's something I'd like to say. Look, you're upset. There are a lot of people in this country who are upset. I was in tears earlier because I went to the cenotaph with my young stepson and to show him the cenotaph. It's surrounded by coppers. Okay, the whole place is protected. That monument is a monument to people who gave their lives to protect this country. And now we are in London protecting their monument, the monument to their memory. And you know what? I can talk rationally, I always try, and I try to listen. But at the end of the day, I am absolutely seething that that monument has to be protected. It has to be protected from some elements of the pro-Palestinian
be
marches.
punished.
I saw them today,
They should be
and the
punished.
police were putting a ring of steel up to stop them doing it. Okay, there were others on the right who were doing it today. Nobody should have been marching and protesting today or tomorrow unless they were involved in an Armistice Day or a Remembrance Day event. And you get upset, but actually this conflict is being brought to the streets of Great Britain, and we don't want it. We don't want.
What is this we business, bro? What is this we business? Why do you think there are people out there protesting? Because they do want to show that they have a voice and that they want the conflict to stop. They want a ceasefire. They want whatever. They want solutions provided by their government. That's what protesting is for. That's what you fought for. That's what your forefathers fought for. That's what everyone fights for. To have the ability to protest and to spread your voice without being put down by the government. You talking about something we don't want it. You do realize that a lot of these people are British, and a lot of these Palestinians or Arabs that might be protesting are actually citizens of the UK, right? So when you say we don't want it, do you talk about the we as in like the older generation of UK's citizens, or are you talking about the brown people? Let's be real.
This fire in us. That's why Ash and other people, it's not just here, get really upset. No, I'm going to finish. Okay? Get very upset. You are losing all the sympathy from ordinary, quiet Brits because of exactly what I saw this evening at the cenotaph. And it is so sad. It is so tragic. And you know what? It's making people angry, and it's going to get worse.
I agree.
If the fire isn't taken out of it. And so you guys, and I say you, pro-Palestinian, I get all your emotions, but for God's sake, if you are not nationalists, if you're not Hamas
Henry,
terrorists,
I've got 30 seconds before they go to
rein
a
back,
break.
please.
Automatically, I
And the
have no
same for the
choice.
right.
I just want a little...
He just said,
I've got 30 seconds.
If you are not nationalists, if you're not Hamas
Henry,
terrorists,
I've got 30 seconds before they go
rein
to a
back,
break.
please.
Automatically, I
And the
have
same
no
for the
choice.
right.
I just want a little response.
Shut
Sorry,
up.
you said you agreed, yet you've been, you know.
Guys, there's been no violence at any of these protests for the last 4 weeks. There hasn't,
That's not
right?
correct. I've got it on video on here.
Okay.
That's not correct.
Okay.
Why didn't you let him finish? What? Oh my God. Why didn't they let him finish? That was weird. Where is it? I saw it. I wanted to go to it, but I don't see it anymore.
Angel Falls, I give you Christmas.
You heard what David had to say there. What's your response to that accusation? And to be honest, he's not the first one to make it.
You know, today is the International Day for the Prevention of the Crime of Genocide, and it's a timely reminder of why Israel is fighting this war. Because on October 7th, Hamas committed an act of genocide against the Israeli people. It invaded with its death squads, and they had a mission to burn, behead, butcher,
Stop. 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 Bro, just like y'all can say Israel is not trying to commit a genocide, even though they've killed almost 20,000 people, then they can say, well, and don't try to portray it as if Hamas was trying to implement a genocide on Israel. Because a part of a genocide is the capability to carry out a genocide. And Hamas cannot carry out a genocide. They killed 1,500 people. Yes, it's horrible, but it was not a genocide. Stop overblowing everything. Stop trying to label everything with the most heinous label you can put on it.
mutilate, torture, rape, and abduct as many Israelis as they could and as brutally as they could. And they did that with Nazi-like cruelty, Nazi-like efficiency, and out of a Nazi-like ideology that seeks the extermination of every man, woman, child in our country and every Jew in the world. And after Hamas retreated back into the Gaza Strip with 250 hostages, having brutally murdered 1,200 people, the first thing it did was to threaten us that it wants to do it all over again. And so Israel's campaign now is not only to defend ourselves from the October 7th massacre, it's to defend ourselves from the threat of repeat October 7th massacres by a brutal army of terror that has made open its genocidal goals against our people.
But are you doing that effectively? Are you securing Israel's future when that means that in the process of trying to take out Hamas, you are killing, your airstrikes are killing, you know, what is it, 15,000, 14,000 civilians, 70% of them women and children. These are numbers not contested by your close friends in Washington. In fact, they say the numbers are probably a bit higher because there are thousands of people dead under the rubble. Are you securing your security by doing that?
Those are numbers that are being given to you by Hamas, the same terror
They are not contested by the Americans. Let's not play that game again. They're not contested by the administration.
They are contested.
They're not.
Because Hamas tries to pass all of them off as civilians.
Okay. Even if I was being if I was to give you the benefit of the doubt and say those numbers are contested. Contested by what? A figure of like 1,000, give or take. So it could be 17,000, it could be 16,000, it could be 18,000. Stop trying to portray it as if, oh, Hamas is just making numbers up and this is actually like around, even if it was 10,000, even if it was 5,000, it's still not comparable. It's still too many corpses, too many people gone from us. And it is not the right response for what happened.
No.
And we know
They're
that
not all
we've
of them.
killed
Not all of
thousands
them.
terrorists.
Sorry.
No, not all of them. Not all of them,
Let's
Matt.
not
You're
have
correct.
an argument about numbers here.
You're correct.
The numbers, we
You're
are talking about
correct.
thousands of civilians that have been killed, right?
Matt,
Your friends
it
in
is-
Washington are saying they believe that those numbers are correct, right? So let's just, the question is philosophical, really, for a change. Do you honestly believe that by doing this, you are securing your interest in the long term. Right? Because even Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of Defense in Washington, has said strategically what you are doing is a mistake.
Matt, the alternative to a campaign to destroy Hamas in response to the October 7th massacre is to leave Hamas in power with 137 hostages while it is threatening us that it wants to do the same massacre it has shown us that it has the capabilities to do. Now, every civilian death is a tragedy, Matt. Every civilian death. And civilian deaths are a tragic consequence of every war, and they are a tragic consequence of this war too.
But they're not an inevitable consequence, are they? I mean, I'm quoting the Americans. Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State, has said very openly, you are not doing enough to live up to your precept, to your pledge of trying to save as many civilian lives as possible. Quite the opposite. This is not me saying this. This is your friends in Washington saying it. Are you going to ignore them?
Matt, I'm not aware of any war in human history that has not seen civilian fatalities, and there are civilian fatalities in this war too that Hamas began, that we didn't want, that we didn't start, that we didn't even expect, but that we have no choice but to fight and to win, because the consequences of inaction would be that Hamas can massacre our people.
Stop. Bro, we can't go back in time. But as of now, if y'all were to just say, we're done bombing, that would be it. Like, even the civilian population has no way of fighting back now. You have bombed them into defeat. You've won. Pack it up. But you don't want to. You're trying to literally make a new parking lot for for Israel. Push all the Palestinians out and do whatever you want with the land. Let's keep it real. This is from Netanyahu himself.
Again. Now, as we do that, and we fight a counter-terrorism war in urban areas, we are taking steps unprecedented in the history of warfare to keep civilians safe. We are taking steps that the United States and the United Kingdom did not take when they fought ISIS. I'll give you one example. After we completed the encirclement of Gaza City, our soldiers secured a humanitarian corridor. I saw your own Channel 4 report about this, for Palestinians to be able to leave south. Now, during the war against ISIS, when 86 nations, including the United Kingdom, ganged together and decided that this army of terror can no longer be allowed to control territory from which to direct attacks against the West, I don't recall British troops being on the ground in Raqqa and Mosul, providing safe passage for Syrians and Iraqis while ISIS was firing RPGs at them. But that is what our soldiers are doing. And we expect that when the fog of war clears, and we find out what the real civilian to casualty ratio is.
But that's only because you want them out. You want them gone. This is your expressed goal. Bomb the hell out of them so they have no choice but to get the fuck out so that they can never come back. Once they're gone, then you could do whatever you want with the land. You want a Palestinian minority. We just read this from Netanyahu.
And you compare it to other counterterrorism wars in urban areas, because that is the standard against which this must be judged in its proper context. That ratio will show very clearly the lengths that the Israeli army has gone to protect civilians. And it's a sad fact, Matt, that everyone who has been killed since October 7th would still be alive if Hamas had not launched this war.
Indeed.
And no one else would be killed if Hamas
I spent 5 weeks in Israel, Elon, and I went to more funerals than I can remember, and I talked to more hostage families than I planned to, and my heart was broken every single time. I genuinely feel your pain. What I'm wondering about, and what so many people are wondering about, is whether your response is moral and intelligent. So, for instance, let me put this question to you. If you get rid of Hamas, if you get rid of it, what's the plan for the other splinter groups in Gaza and indeed in the West Bank? Because you've got Islamic Jihad, you've got the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine, you've got the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigades, you've got the Popular Resistance Committees, you've got the Jihad Jibril Brigades, and goodness knows how many others that might step into the breach if and when Hamas is actually eliminated. Because ultimately, it's not just a bunch of fighters and extremists and terrorists, it is also an idea. And you can't kill the idea so easily.
We know that we're fighting the most moral fight imaginable, and that is a fight to bring our people home to safety and to bring their tormentors to justice. That has been the mission statement of the State of Israel ever since we reclaimed our sovereignty here out of the ashes of the Holocaust. We know there is nothing more moral than to destroy the army of terror that is threatening our people with annihilation. Now, as for the day after, we have been saying there are three principles that need to be in place to prevent a relapse into violence. The first is demilitarization. The Gaza Strip will have to be demilitarized. Just now I saw footage of a plane landing at Ben Gurion Airport as missiles fly overhead in the distance. No country in the world would tolerate that threat to its people, including the countries that voted to keep Hamas in power yesterday at the United Nations, and we're done.
Well, hang on a minute. They didn't vote to keep Hamas in power. What they voted for was a ceasefire. Let's get that straight.
They voted for a ceasefire.
Indeed, and saying that we should not end this war with the end of Hamas, but we should freeze the conflict with Hamas still in power, is saying that the rapists who burned, beheaded, and tortured people on October 7th should remain in power. That is the meaning of what 13 nations voted on and what the United Kingdom abstained on.
It may be the consequence of it. It is not the meaning of the vote. It wasn't the intention of the vote. Let me ask you this. If the Americans...
absolutely... No, sorry, Matt. I want to point this out. That is absolutely the intention of the vote, because when you vote for a ceasefire and you vote to freeze the status quo, you are voting to keep the army of terror that perpetrated the October 7th massacre in place and still standing, and that.
But it is also possible that, the people of Gaza, who are, and not everyone there's a Hamas supporter, they might want to get rid of Hamas, that triggered the thing that led to the destruction.
Well, polls show that Hamas is more popular than ever in Gaza and in the West Bank. So I don't know about that.
You're not even giving them a chance to get rid of Hamas, because you're keeping them in a perpetual state of war.
Matt, it's been 16 years. I think if any of them had wanted to overthrow Hamas and there had been a serious opportunity to overthrow Hamas in that time, it would have happened. But I hope you're also seeing the videos that are emerging from Gaza of Gazans who are beginning to speaking freely about how Hamas has been requisitioning aid that was supposed to go to civilians, how Hamas has been hiding and fighting from inside civilian areas.
I'm seeing those same videos, but you're stifling those voices with your constant bombardment, aren't you?
No, those voices are beginning to come out now that Hamas's grip on the Gaza Strip is beginning to loosen. We hope and expect that the day after Hamas, when we bring security for the people of Israel, we will also bring new opportunities for Palestinians in the Gaza Strip who realize that terrorism is a dead end. And then in the last 16 years of Hamas rule, as they diverted concrete that was meant to go to people's homes and built those tunnels under the Shifa hospital, built those tunnels under the schools and mosques, the people of Gaza know that the corrupt Hamas regime has brought them nothing but misery.
A few more brief ones. A few more brief ones. What is the point of bombing tens of thousands of civilian homes, apartment blocks? What is the point? What's the point of bombing mosques, and turning hospitals into battlefields? Does that advance your military purpose?
Matt, you know that Hamas operates from within mosques, within schools, and within hospitals. This is Hamas's MO. Its soldiers dress up as civilians, and then they fight inside civilian facilities. Just yesterday, our soldiers found a tunnel. So that means that every civilian building
is fair game. You flatten it because it had an association with Hamas.
We are targeting Hamas infrastructure on the basis of precise intelligence. And as
we're talking about 100,000 buildings here. 50% of the housing stock is gone. These are not all Hamas buildings.
Hamas has spent the last 16 years pursuing a deliberate strategy of embedding itself under civilian areas.
And does that mean that every civilian area is fair game? This is the question. Does that mean that every civilian area and the civilians who live there are fair game because of Hamas?
Every Hamas infrastructure is fair game, and we're doing everything we can to get civilians out of harm's way. At the Al-Azhar University, for example, in Gaza, we discovered a tunnel yesterday in the quad, in the yard, and we found that tunnel led a kilometer away to a mosque. We found during close quarter fighting as well. These aren't aerial bombardments. Our soldiers are going door to door in close quarter fighting with Hamas terrorists. They found a tunnel inside a classroom. This is the reality that we are dealing with of a brutal army of terror that dresses up as civilians and deliberately fights from inside schools, mosques, and hospitals because they think that then they can retreat behind that civilian infrastructure and evade justice.
Okay.
And after the October 7th massacre, we are saying enough is enough. We will topple the Hamas rapist and terror regime. We will restore security for Israel, and we will give opportunities for those Gazans who realize that the ideology of terrorism and violence against Israel is a dead end and will only ever bring misery.
Okay, two more brief ones, if I may, because we've gone massively over time, but it's important to hear this. Why have the Israelis chosen Al-Mawasi, that tiny little enclave that looks like a sandpit next to the Mediterranean? Why have they chosen that as the only safe space for 2.3 million Gazans to cram into?
Because that is an area where Hamas has not already embedded itself under civilian infrastructure. Because in all other urban areas, including the urban areas to which international aid agencies have irresponsibly been directing civilians, Hamas is already hiding under schools.
But hang on a minute,
mosques.
Al-Mawasi is the size of Heathrow Airport. Do you think that 2.3 million civilians can survive in a sandpit the size of Heathrow Airport without causing a major humanitarian catastrophe?
We would like to see international agencies begin to move civilians into the humanitarian zone, and to the extent they do so, we will of course consider other options and other safe zones that may be designated. And Matt, it is outrageous that Hamas has decided to start shooting rockets from inside the humanitarian zone. On Thursday, we had a barrage of 12 rockets towards the city of Beersheba, fired from inside the humanitarian zone, which just tells you...
And of course, and they do carry on firing these rockets.
If I can just finish the sentence.
Quickly.
The extent to which Israel is going to try to get civilians out of harm's way to the only places where Hamas isn't operating, and then Hamas is operating from those areas to double down on its sick human shield strategy.
All right. And finally, Elon, the Americans have said that, you've got another month of this. And they've indicated that if you don't stop what you're doing now, soon, they will tell you to stop. If they tell you to stop, will you listen?
On the contrary, Matt, the latest statements we've seen from President Biden, from Vice President Harris, from Secretary of State Blinken, from John Kirby, from the State Department, have been that the United States sees eye to us that this war must end with the end of Hamas. They've been
must be looking at different statements because they've also said, we know, and you might know as well, I've been speaking to people in Washington, they're frankly panicking. They're panicking that you're going to lose them the next election if you carry on like this, amongst many other things. So if they tell you to stop, will you stop?
This war is going to end with the end of Hamas, as the United States has been saying consistently from the very beginning. And that's why yesterday it showed that tremendous moral leadership in standing up to the United Nations resolution that would have sought to end this conflict by leaving Hamas in power and calling it even. We know the United States stands shoulder to shoulder with us, that this war must end with the end of Hamas, because you can't just massacre 1,200 people in the deadliest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust and get away with it.
But can you massacre 15,000 civilians and not even take out Hamas militarily?
Matt, that is an outrageous accusation. We are targeting Hamas, and we have gone further.
You're killing civilians in huge numbers. To them, that sounds like, that feels like massacre to them. It may not feel like it to you, but it feels like that to them.
We are doing everything we can, going further than your country did in previous wars, to get civilians out of harm's way. And we hold Hamas squarely responsible for launching this infernal war in the first place, and for fighting this war from inside urban areas it is trying to stop being evacuated, because its whole strategy is based on trying to create as much misery as possible, because it knows it will gain sympathy from people like you and other media, and that will put diplomatic pressure on Israel to stop defending its people from an army of terror that is threatening us with another October 7th massacre over and over again.
We take the entire family to Bucks County every year for the holidays. It's a time for all of us to focus.
Okay, just end like that. Weird.
Is needed. Are you saying that Israel would reoccupy Gaza? And what do you say to those who say there should be an international force that governs Gaza after the war?
Well, I think Gaza has to make sure that it's not a threat to Israel. We said destroy Hamas, and for that, if we want to have peace, we have to destroy Hamas. This is what Israel must do, and this is what Israel will do.
Would you accept an international force, Mr. Prime Minister? Would you accept an international force?
I think that the only force right now that can guarantee that Hamas, that terrorism does not reappear and take over Gaza again is the Israeli military. So overall military responsibility will have to be in Israel. As far as the civilian management of Gaza, we need to see the following two things. Gaza has to be demilitarized and Gaza has to be de-radicalized. And I think so far we haven't seen any Palestinian force, including the Palestinian Authority, that is able to do it. They teach their children to hate Israel. They're not fighting terrorists. They're paying for slay. That is, the more terrorists, Palestinian terrorists murder Jews, the more they get paid. And to this day, 36 days after the worst savagery perpetrated on the Jewish people since the Holocaust, the Palestinian Authority president has yet refuses to condemn this savagery. So, you know, we need a different authority. We need a different administration.
Who would that be? Who would that be, Mr. Prime Minister? Who would that be?
I think it's too early to say. Kirsten, I think it's too early to say, but I can say one thing. The first task we have to achieve is defeat Hamas. The first task the Allies had to achieve before they could reconstruct Germany was to defeat the Nazis. These, as the German Chancellor said, are the new Nazis. We'll defeat them, and then we'll work to have a demilitarized and a de-radicalized Gaza, which will give hope to these people. I mean, they're living under 16 years of horrendous tyrannical rule of Hamas. We'll liberate them, and we'll liberate ourselves from this horror, this scourge of barbarism that plagues not only us. It's not only our war. Kirsten, it's your war too. It's the war of civilization against barbarism. We have to win it, and we will.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.
This game, you're not ready for it.
That's 8 months ago. Jesus Christ. I'm curious.
Calling Hamas a terrorist organization is ridiculous, racist, and plays into genocidal propaganda that is flooding our media and that we should be doing everything possible to combat.
I support the right of Palestinians to resist occupation, including through Hamas, the armed wing of the unified Palestinian resistance.
That was in Oakland during last night's city council meeting, and it's really hard to overstate, and I'm going to try to be calm.
At this point, I don't know how anyone is defending Hamas, but here we are.
Open-minded, understanding, and, you know, not use the rhetoric that I really want to use, like the fact that I can't overstate how much I despise these people and how self-indulgent and stupid they are. And yes, that is an ad hominem attack. That is exactly what it is, but it's also the perfect description, okay, to let everyone know who these people really are. Now, let me just back up and tell you what the city council meeting was about, what was being debated. The city council was deciding on whether or not, and of course this is symbolic, to call for a ceasefire for the aerial bombardments carried out by Israel against, Hamas in the Gaza Strip to stop because of the high civilian death toll. Day after day, I come on this show and I condemn what the IDF's been doing. I've been condemning and speaking out against the disgusting genocidal statements that members of the Likud party have been making since October 7th. So I've been very clear about where I stand in regard to the various international war crime violations that Israel has engaged in. But I'm also not an idiot, and I don't fall for propaganda by a group of people who carried out some of the most vicious atrocities against innocent civilians in Israel. I don't need to carry water for them, and I don't need to fall for their stupid propaganda.
Somebody's YouTube name is crazy.
But unfortunately, there's some fragment of the left, and I'm hoping it is a tiny, tiny fragment of the left, that's stupid enough to look at propaganda videos where Hamas is releasing the hostages. And gee, I don't know, some of the family members of the hostages that are being released might still be held captive by Hamas. And so when you see the hostages who are being released wave to the cameras and awkwardly look like they're happy about the situation, could it be that they're concerned about their family members who are still held captive by...
I mean, it could also be, oh my God, I'm so grateful that I get to go home. Lord have mercy, I'm so happy to go home.
Hamas, which, by the way, also committed international war crimes by, kidnapping innocent Israeli civilians. So look, I want to break down the arguments made by these individuals who were incensed over the fact that the measure that was voted on by the city council, which did in fact pass. They did decide to pass a measure calling for Israel to engage in a ceasefire. They did that, okay? But they also wanted to include a provision that made it abundantly clear that they condemn Hamas, which should be an easy thing to do, but apparently it's not easy to do. It's not easy to do. So I'm gonna break down the dumb arguments that were made by these leftists who think they're revolutionaries because they support Hamas and they think that's somehow representative of...
You know what's also funny about these revolutionaries that live in America defending a terrorist group? You are so far removed from the conflict, it's hilarious. How about you take a flight to Israel, sneak over to Gaza, and fight? Sneak over to Egypt, fly over to Egypt, sneak over to Gaza, and fight. Become what you like. Put your money where your mouth is. Don't just sit back in America speaking about how they're freedom fighters, because you're not fighting. You're not risking your lives. You're just talking out your ass.
Of freedom fighters in Palestine. Break them down, debunk them.
Hopefully you catch a Israeli bomb of your own.
And then I'm going to tell you how this is actually incredibly counterproductive for anyone who actually gives a damn about the well-being, freedom, and statehood of the Palestinian people. Let's go to the first video.
There's not been beheadings of babies and rapings. Israel murdered their own people on October 7th.
There's been a lot of atrocity propaganda ranging from claims of beheaded babies to mass rape.
Arguing that Hamas didn't carry out atrocities on October 7th is both ignorant and shameful. It's also indecent and incredibly cruel to the victims on October 7th. Some Israelis, by the way, have actually accused Palestinians of faking their deaths or faking their injuries and wounds. They're crisis actors, right? The crisis actor narrative has come from some on the pro-Israel side. And we have condemned that because it's disgusting. There is no evidence that you have Palestinians faking their own deaths. I mean, that is Alex Jones level Sandy Hook propaganda, okay? But people are engaging in it on the Israeli side, and then you have morons like the ones you just heard from engaging in it publicly during a city council meeting because they somehow think it is helpful to deny the atrocities that Hamas carried out. I don't know how many examples we need to provide, but one of the videos that I can't get out of my mind, okay, because I'm a human being, and when I see other human beings suffering, regardless of what their politics are, regardless of where they reside, my heart breaks. I don't enjoy seeing it. And I don't want to provide cover for what's happening to them. But what's so disgusting to me is we've all seen the video of an Israeli woman being forced into a truck by members of Hamas. She's wearing pants, but her backside is absolutely covered in blood. I wonder what happened to her. Why would she have all this blood on her backside? Oh, but there's no evidence of rapes that occurred during these atrocities. It's true that Israel hasn't released evidence of decapitated babies. That doesn't mean that it's already proven that babies weren't decapitated. We don't know. We really don't know. But I would just venture to say that maybe, just maybe, there's the possibility that the family members of those children wouldn't want photos of those babies being decapitated floating around all over on the internet. I don't know. That I could be wrong. I could be wrong. They might find that incredibly cruel. They might be re-traumatized by that over and over again. Maybe that's why they didn't want that out. But again, I don't know. I agree. We haven't seen those photos. We haven't seen that evidence. But I've seen enough evidence of the atrocities that Hamas committed to acknowledge that they committed atrocities. And I don't need to provide cover for them to also simultaneously find the behavior and the military actions of the IDF abhorrent and in violation of international laws. You can hold those two thoughts at the same time. I know it's crazy. If we're disgusted by the crisis actor conspiracy theories coming from the pro-Israeli side, pro-Israel side, I should say, we should be just as disgusted when we hear the type of arguments, those same types of arguments being made of Hamas. By the way, again, I want to reiterate, taking civilians as hostages breaks international laws. It's a war crime. Now, Human Rights Watch also verified some of the videos that came out featuring Hamas carrying out these atrocities. So I'm going to give you some descriptions here. They're hard to hear about. I mean, I personally find them incredibly hard to hear about, read about. So I want to give fair warning to people who still have, a soul, the ability to feel anything when it comes to human lives. But here are, again, this is Human Rights Watch. Here are the verified descriptions of the video.
Researchers have identified 34,000 unique human feelings. But which feeling feels best?
Videos that Human Rights Watch has looked at. In one verified video, dashcam footage taken at 7:55 a.m. shows 7 gunmen, including several yelling in Arabic, kick a shirtless man in front of a bomb shelter connected to the Ram Junction bus stop, just a few minutes walk south of the location of the Supernova Music Festival. One gunman shouts in Arabic, "Guys, inside here." And they appear to argue briefly before another gunman throws an object into the shelter. A man dressed in civilian clothes dashes out. The gunmen yell, "Take aim," and shoot at him from behind as he tries to flee. As they are shooting, there is an explosion inside the shelter. The video ends, and it is unclear whether either man survived. That also reminds me of one of the other verified incidents that happened on October 7th. And this is one of the incidents that I also have a hard time forgetting about. So a father runs into a shelter where his 2 sons are. A Hamas militant throws a grenade into that shelter. The father dies. Somehow, miraculously, the 2 young sons survive. They start wailing and crying. One of them says, why couldn't we die? Why are we still alive? And the other, his brother, looks at him and says, we're going to die, aren't we? And as this is happening, a Hamas militant opens their fridge and proceeds to enjoy a Coke, a soda. Oh, no, these are freedom fighters, right? I mean, look at the freedom they managed to secure for the Palestinian people who are now suffering brutal aerial bombardments by the IDF. Wow, great job. Real great strategy there. Disgusting, absolutely disgusting. I'm disgusted by anyone that would provide cover for this, but I have more. CNN visited that shelter, by the way, on October 9th and reported that its interior was splattered with blood, which would happen, as you fire into the building in an effort to shoot and kill individuals. Or if you throw a grenade into a building with the intention of killing individuals within that building. In a second verified video, security camera footage filmed at 8:43 a.m., a man in civilian clothing who appears to be fatally shot lies bleeding on the ground in front of a kibbutz. A group of gunmen congregate in front of a structure close to the dead man, and one throws an object toward it. Within 15 seconds, there is an explosion inside the structure, and a gunman drags out a person, shoots them at close range, and beats them with the butt of his rifle as the other gunmen look on. The New York Times also reports of just how indiscriminate Hamas's atrocities were. Obviously, they targeted everyone. It wasn't just IDF soldiers. They also went after civilians, as is very clear here, but they also went after other foreigners. Those killed in Israel on October 7th also include foreigners and dual nationals. At least 31 U.S. citizens and 39 French citizens were killed during the attacks, authorities in both countries have said. Other victims include at least 34 Thai nationals. Asian workers were a common sight in the farms near Israel's border with Gaza. So do these people's lives matter, or are they martyrs in the quest for freedom for the Palestinians? And did they get that? Are we seeing Palestinians live better lives today after Hamas carried out the atrocities it carried out? Of course not. It has made the possibility of an actual two-state solution at this point pretty impossible. And for anyone who thought that a one-state solution, I get it. Look, I have empathy for people who genuinely think that that can be accomplished. A one-state solution, a democratic country where Israelis and Palestinians live side by side, coexist, everything is fine. It's not going to happen. There's too much animosity. There's too much history. Realistically, a two-state solution made a lot more sense to me. We're further from that than I think we've ever been. And there's a good possibility that what the IDF is currently carrying out is ethnically cleansing the Gaza Strip. So mission accomplished, freedom fighters? Speaking of the freedom fighters argument, I want to go to the next video. Let's watch.
As an Arab, asking with this context to condemn Hamas is very anti-Arab racist.
Calling Hamas a terrorist organization is ridiculous, racist, and plays into genocidal propaganda that is flooding our media and that we should be doing everything possible to combat.
Did anyone else notice that those who oppose this resolution are old white supremacists?
What the fuck? Hey, yo. Hey, yo. That's crazy, brother. That's crazy. So if you're pro-Israel, you're a white supremacist. Bro, and you know what's funny? You know what was, you know who all these people were? Were basically like fucking tweens, young fucking dumbass kids, and this crazy lady. Like, y'all don't know what the fuck y'all talking about.
Doing everything possible to combat.
That shit is crazy.
Did anyone else notice that those who oppose this resolution are old white supremacists?
Weaponizing racism, sexism, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, I'm sick of it, okay? Asking people to condemn Hamas is not racist. It's just not. It is a lazy and boring argument, just as lazy and boring as the people who want to shut down critique of the Israeli government by calling anyone who engages in that conversation an anti-Semite. Obviously, that doesn't work anymore because people have felt more and more emboldened to speak out, and that's a good thing, okay? But I'm also gonna feel just as emboldened to speak out against these morons as they provide cover for atrocities committed by Hamas. And look, this is different from people who want to make the case that the way Israel has treated Palestinians has led to more extremism. That is an argument that I think has a lot of credibility. But that is also very different from then saying, oh, the extremists are totally okay in carrying out atrocities. That's when you go too far. You see the distinction? At least 50% of the homes in Gaza right now, totally demolished, okay? I don't understand how anyone can see the aftermath of what Hamas did and think that they were justified in doing it, that it was somehow moral to commit the war crimes and atrocities that they did, and then make the argument that it's somehow a good thing for Palestinians, who, by the way, haven't been allowed to have an election in the Gaza Strip since 2006. They're not able to practice in a democratic process. They're not able to cast a ballot for who they want to be their leaders. They are forced, okay? They're forced to live under the rule of Hamas. Half of the people living in Gaza weren't even born in 2006 when Hamas was elected. So the idea that Hamas is somehow good, a force for good in this equation is insane to me. All right. By the way, and one other thing
I really want to
need
hop
to
in
say.
some debate.
Let's dispel the notion that Hamas, like, consists of freedom fighters, really. And you're about to hear the arguments here, and then I'm going to tell you why what Hamas did. I mean, I can't believe I have to spell it out, but what Hamas did ended up being devastatingly counterproductive. Let's watch.
Hello, I'm Patrick Stewart. Did you know that
I support the right of Palestinians to resist occupation, including through Hamas, the armed wing of the unified Palestinian resistance.
Hamas is not a terrorist organization just because the U.S. and Israel deems it so. Hamas is a resistance organization that is fighting for the liberation of Palestinian people and their land.
Please seek help. Just please, for the love of God, seek help. What Hamas did has already led to...
Or go to Gaza, man. Go to Gaza. Fight. Take up arms. Defend those Palestinians. And then catch an Israeli bomb. And then disappear from this earth. Please.
See the retaliatory slaughter of tens of thousands of Palestinian civilians. So congratulations, I guess? Okay. At least 50%, the numbers have actually gone up a little bit. 60% of residential property, homes in the Gaza Strip, gone, destroyed through Israel's aerial bombardment. So did the freedom fighters get what they wanted? But there's more. The outcome of this could very likely, I want to repeat this, lead to the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. So the argument that what Hamas is doing represents armed resistance, as if what they're doing is somehow helpful to the cause that we've been fighting for the Palestinian people, it's lunacy. It's what lunatics say. Lunacy. And just take a look at what the former Israeli prime minister just recently said during an interview on CNN. This is Naftali Bennett. And this gives you a little peek inside the future of Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. This is what the freedom fighters have led to. Congratulations. Let's watch.
Israel would retain overall security and defense responsibility, but we don't want to govern the Gazans. So what I think we would do is create an interim technocratic self-government that would say for about 5 years govern Gaza, denazify Gaza, which means clean out all the incitement, all the education that all Jews are pigs and devils. And after 5 years, we would revisit and figure out how to create a sustainable government, perhaps with our Abraham Accord partners, countries in that area.
Okay, so let me decode that for you. We are going to occupy the Gaza Strip for security reasons.
Right.
And it goes more than just preventing the import-export of the Gaza Strip. It's about actually being there, having boots on the ground, Israeli forces on the ground in Gaza for security purposes, right?
For up to 5 years.
Censorship, what the students in Gaza can and cannot learn about. I mean, it's more restrictions, okay, more occupation, a puppet government. I mean, that's essentially what he's proposing here. Naftali Bennett is saying, like, we're prop up a puppet government that we'll have control over. Is this the freedom that the freedom fighters were fighting for? Is that what happened here? And the biggest problem with this faction of the left, and God, I hope it's a tiny faction, I don't know. They're real loud. And unfortunately, since they're super loud, they end up making all of us look like we agree with them. I don't agree with them. I find them super toxic, super problematic, super counterproductive. Okay, the problem with them is that what they tend to advocate for isn't really about improving the lives of all people. Their ideology is really about improving the lives of one group of people at the cost of another group of people. And you see this when it comes to criminal justice reform. It became very clear to me with criminal justice reform. They want criminal justice reform that leads to a softer criminal justice system for the actual perpetrators of crimes, including violent crimes, at the expense of the victims of the crimes. No, I'm not on board with that. I'm not going to sign on to that. Because I envision a world where we improve the lives of everyone, where we create a just justice system, where those who are accused are treated fairly, and the victims of these crimes are able to get their own justice. But the way that these leftists handle situations is they everything is through the oppressed and oppressor lens, rather than a dialectical lens. And when you see a situation as complicated as this war through a oppressor-oppressed lens, well, then it's really easy to dehumanize innocent civilians on the Israeli side. And I refuse to do that. In fact, most leftists, I would venture to say, are on board with what I'm saying. It's just these super annoying, loud idiots who show up to city council meetings in Oakland, in Los Angeles, and embarrass all of us, and provide fodder for dishonest actors who want to use them and what they say to paint take broad strokes and paint a picture of what the entirety of the left is about. So the reason why I talk about these stories, I know, Majority Report got mad at me for speaking out against some of the lunacy that happens on the left, because they feel that it's not smart, it makes the left look bad, don't do that, don't do that. Because, we're supposed to be propagandists for the left and provide cover even for those who engage in bad behavior. I refuse, that's not what I'm into. What I'm into is holding members of our own side accountable and at least drawing a distinction to make it abundantly clear, we're not with this. We're not in favor of this. This is not what the left represents. Because if you think avoiding any conversation about it is going to lead to a situation in which people don't know about the morons who said these moronic things at the Oakland City Council meeting, you'd be mistaken. You'd be mistaken. There's a very real effort right now to lump together level-headed people, okay? Level-headed people who believe in freedom, peace, dignity for all, with these ignorant leftists. That's the reason why I think it's important to speak out against it. They think that they're freedom fighters. They think that they're being helpful when in reality, again, they are feeding into some of the paranoia that Jewish people in America are really struggling with right now, because they think, oh my God, there's a giant population within our own borders who don't value our lives. And why would you want to make anyone feel like that? Why would you want to provide fodder for the right wing when the right wing wants to paint the left as apologists for
terrorists,
groups that carry out some of the most vicious atrocities imaginable? Why? Why would you want that? Again, this provides fodder for dishonest actors who seek to deflect from Israel's war crimes by instead fear-mongering about the entirety of the left allegedly having the same thought process as what you experienced in those videos. And it's not true. And it's about time the general left grow a set and speak out against these lunatics.
Grow a set.
Because they are a liability. And if you want to actually accomplish something, the self-indulgent idiots that you saw in those videos are going to be an obstacle to accomplishing the policy.
True. I want to hop into someone's debate.
When you come to see the pyramids, avoid all these
that's yes, I work in an industry where I can't go away during Christmas, so I live
not like
So
it's
our universe is
our universe is the one verse of everything, one plane of existence of everything. Infinity is not a real number. It can't be divided or multiplied. All of those equations end in undefined, right? Like you can't divide by infinity, you can't add infinity plus one.
What this guy yapping about? Damn, bro, been yapping for 6 hours, dog. How? Okay. Well, I don't know why that's not
This is part of the echo chamber, I'm assuming.
Well, they ain't gonna be part of shit if they don't fix their shit.
Good morning. They're gonna
Nobody
say
will come in.
good morning.
Different. He's not. And this is a growth.
Twerk culture. Oh my god.
Up, and I'm like, no, Palestine, and they're like, oh, we don't know where that is. And then I say Israel, they're like, yeah. Now we know where you're from. So you're Israeli or you're Jewish or whatever. So if people don't know that Palestine existed, how are we giving support to we you don't like it's not even recognized in the Western world. So how are we aiding and helping? And I mean, I'm being educated, I guess, today because I never knew that funds were given. And if they were, I didn't. Where are they? Where are they like?
The
And if
funds
they
were
were funding them, and sorry, and last thing, and if they were funding them, then why did they go ahead and destroy everything? Like, I'm confused. I don't. Maybe I'm not a political person, but I go.
So the funds that were given were stolen by Mahmoud Abbas.
That's correct.
The Palestinian Authority, pretty much. They oppressed the people within West Bank. The whole system, Mahmoud Abbas, that they're all just very corrupt and look for the money.
That's what I mean. Like when you look at the sympathy towards Palestinian people, it's like, do you really know about them? Do you know what they're going through? If I told you that one of every 3 women are, physically abused by their husbands or family members, would you be more sympathetic towards the Palestinian people?
Brother, we see that everywhere in the world.
Domestic violence that has no race or
yeah,
color
domestic
or
violence,
anything,
physical
though.
violence, any violence,
domestic
yeah.
violence.
We see that everywhere in the world, bro.
But I mean, like, you got to know
that's
about the cause you're fighting for, correct?
Or religion or anything.
Yeah,
so
I'm not talking
it's
about
not-
culture or religion. I'm talking about the people. I'm more concerned about the people than I am about religion or culture. Well, that is a true statistic that comes from the United Nations website. There's a
I mean, we can also
Can you repeat
organization
this
for
statistic,
women
please?
in Palestine to end domestic abuse. I don't know if you ever heard of it. I can give it to you.
we can also argue the statistic that Israel is the 5th nation in which schizophrenia is the most common. So like you see where I'm getting at. Not all Israelis are schizophrenic. Not all Palestinians are, that way that you're trying to like push. And I'm not trying to like attack you or anything. It's just you gotta
I can
think
handle
that's
it.
like,
It's
huh?
fine. So I can handle it. It's fine.
They're spreading like misinformation.
Do
No, I
you want me to give you the
can't. I
groups
can't
for the
sit by with
Palestinian women to end
misinformation.
domestic violence? I can give them to you. So the first one is the Women's
There's
Peace
a
and
group in
Humanitarian
every.
Fund.
Listen, I'm a domestic violence counselor, and I
So
know
you
all
should
the
know them, right?
statistics. So excuse me. Yeah, but that's not. You're saying it's only one country. There's a coalition for women against domestic violence in every country, in every nation. I mean, I don't understand your point. You're getting me really like, I'm not emotional, but I'm just, don't talk about an area where I'm an expert in because you are obviously not reading the correct.
And wait, truth seeker. I just want you to, I just want you to see it from this angle. A lot of cases of domestic violence in America, right? They're derived from alcoholics, no?
Sure. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So would you not agree that alcohol is one of the biggest problems in society?
Yeah. Alcohol abuse.
So-
Yeah.
So when the Muslim countries get pushed off of that, and the Western society doesn't like the fact that Muslims have that ideology, so they try to, in a sense, suppress it and make them look bad. Because, for example, I'll give you an analogy: if and only if Muslims, like what's it called, if America became a Muslim country and removed such things as alcohol, drugs, P, P hub, these things. P hub is literally proven to, mess with your brain. Alcohol is proven to mess with your brain. That's why it has an evil root. These things that people put like that the Muslims try to push out, and then I see others nitpick that the Arab countries don't have the freedom to do these things. There's a reason they don't have the freedom to do these things, because they all have evil roots, and they all, in a sense, are bad. That's why the Western, if you pay attention to America, those industries make them the most money. So they see the Muslim ideology as a threat to the Western ideology. You see where I'm getting at?
Yeah, I thought we weren't going to bring religion or race, like race. Like I
No,
thought we
no,
were
no.
going to do that.
This is not. No, no. It's not about religion, bro. It's just a
But you
mindset.
said
The two,
Muslim.
I know. Okay, fine. We'll put it in an Arab term. The Arabs, right? The Arabs are against alcohol in their land. There's a reason they're against it. You get what I mean?
It has nothing to do with their Arabs or not. You notice how I didn't say Arabs or Muslims. I said the Palestinian women. I'm trying to take a race and ethnicity or religion out of it and focus solely on the people of the cause. Like if you guys are not just solely focused on, campaigning and advocating and being activists, you got to focus on the people too. Like I gave you a site, Human Rights Watch is another site that does advocating for the Palestinian women that fear for their lives when it comes to domestic abuse by their partners and other family members. There was a case in 2019 where a young woman, 21 years old, was beaten by her father. She later died a few days later because she couldn't receive treatment in Palestine.
I don't know, brother. You see that everywhere. I don't think that's just a Palestinian thing.
I'm
It
not
can't
saying it's
be.
just a Palestinian thing. If you're going to fight for the people, fight for them.
No, of course. That's
Okay,
what's
but why would
going
you
on
bring it
right
up
now.
when we're talking about you're steering off the top?
It's
Wait.
not. It's very relevant because it still happens to this day.
So do you think if the Palestinians had their own right to self determination, they wouldn't put a stop to domestic violence?
Okay,
Genuine question.
Yeah, I think they would.
Exactly. So
okay.
so the point
So
is,
here in America, 1 out of 3 women is gonna have a domestic is gonna be involved in a domestic violence relationship. What does that mean? And this has happened for throughout like years. And I'm gonna tell you that. I mean, I guess that's relevant because now we're sharing statistics. But how is that relevant to the issue at Gaza? That's my.
It's actually 1 out of 4 because I know these. RAIN is one of the organizations, RAINN. If you go rain.org or .com, it's one of the organizations that can lead to help domestic abuse for women. So yeah, we can talk about numbers if you
that's in
want to.
America. That's
Yeah,
in
in America,
America.
yeah, it's been around
So
for a long time.
so going back to my point, if they had a real government, the Palestinians, don't you think they would imply the same rules that America does towards domestic violence?
I don't think that they would apply the same government. I don't think that they believe in the same things we do. They would enjoy the same freedoms, absolutely, the right to self-determination, but I don't think they would want a Western society or democracy.
Okay, can I ask can I ask you to clarify? Because okay, so putting aside the rights of men who abuse their female partners, like what point are you trying to make? Like, okay, so ignore all them. Let's not give them equal rights. Like I am a survivor of domestic violence. Like I've been through this. So putting them aside, let's say me and the person that I was with are in Palestine. We're both Palestinian. Are you saying that I too don't deserve like? I don't know what point you're trying to make here. That doesn't justify any of this.
This is not justification. This is talking about the cause, the Palestinian people, correct?
Yes, and
So
with self-determination, they can attack that. The same way America
Right.
tries to attack the war on drugs, the same way they try to attack domestic violence is the same way the Palestinians would if they had a government in which it was a fair government, you know?
Right.
I tried, but they
It's
don't
not
want
a
to let me in.
matter of them
Fucking
not
A.
trying. It's a matter of they can't when they're suppressed.
Fucking annoying is what it is.